Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. On Thursday's show, very shortly, I'm going to go into depth about the VFX controversy at Marvel Studios and explain to you why I will be boycotting the Marvel Cinematic Universe from here on forth. After that, we go back to a very old Forbes article that discusses Warner Brothers' admittance back in 2019 that they had no clue what to do with the Superman live-action franchise and that they were going to rest it. Imagine that, admitting your creative bankruptcy. And then on the last part of the show, we will discuss if Chris Wong Svensson of Ping Pong Flicks is correct. Has the DCEU been cancelled? Are they just going through the motions with Shazam, Fury of the God and Black Adam? Are they just putting these films out because they've spent money on them, so they have to release them? Then they're waiting for this new head of DC Studios to make the relevant changes. We will discuss it. Hollywood has a Writers Guild of America. Hollywood has a Directors Guild of America. Hollywood has an Actors Guild of America. Hollywood has not got a VFX Artists Guild of America. Why not? Because VFX artists in Hollywood are treated like the grunts, like the slaves. Marvel Studios has become a sweatshop of slavery. There's no question about it. And learning about the things that I have learned, I can no longer support the Marvel Cinematic Universe, although my support for it was dwindling and I never had that much love for it anyway, even though I collect the movies and I watch them. I'm a lover of movies, so that makes sense, right? So we're going to read an article where a VFX artist catalogues how Marvel Studios treats its VFX artists, and it's very interesting. It's very, very exposing, and I think after you've heard this, you'll understand why I'm boycotting this studio and this franchise. I am a VFX artist. I'm tired of getting pixel fucked by Marvel. As told to Chris Lee of Vulture. It's pretty well known and even darkly joked about across all the visual effects houses that working on Marvel shows is really hard. When I worked on one movie, it was almost 6 months of overtime every day. I was working 7 days a week, averaging 64 hours a week on a good week. Marvel genuinely works you really hard. I've had co-workers sit next to me, break down and start crying. I've had people having anxiety attacks on the phone. The studio has a lot of power over effects houses just because it has so many blockbuster movies coming out, one after the other. If you upset Marvel in any way, there's a very high chance you're not going to get those projects in the future. So the effects houses are trying to bend over backwards to keep Marvel happy. So when we talk about the effects houses, we're talking about the executives at the effects houses. They're quite willing to expose their workers, their grunts, and I'm not being disrespectful, that's how they're treated, like the grunts, like the ant army of these effects houses. So they're quite happy to expose, their workers to these kind of horrible conditions. And I think there has to be something done here. For me, my advice to VFX artists, and I understand you need to eat and everything, I would think about just boycotting your companies that you work for and refuse to go to work. Everyone. So no one applies for these jobs at these companies, and everyone boycotts working for all these studios, but especially Marvel. And I can see this happening. To get work, the houses bid on a project, they all trying to come in right under one another's bids. With Marvel, the bids will typically come in quite a bit under, and Marvel is happy with that relationship because it saves it money. But what ends up happening is that all Marvel projects tend to be understaffed. Where I would usually have a team of 10 VFX artists on a non-Marvel movie, on one Marvel movie, I got 2, including myself. So this is very, very important to understand. Most movies and TV shows have 10 VFX artists, right? Which clearly is ample. Now this guy is saying when they end up working for Marvel, it's free because the bid's a lot lower and they're paying the companies a lot less. This is why their VFX is so ropey and they're paying cheap. That's what I'm saying. They have become a sweatshop. They're trying to make films and television product now on the cheap. That wasn't the way back in the Paramount days. But this wasn't the way a few years back. So what changed? It'll be interesting to get someone from Marvel to maybe disclose this information to me, and I could keep your identity a secret. What's changed at Marvel Studios? Why is this mentality happening? And it seems to have happened since Bob Iger has left Disney. So every person is doing more work than they need to. The other thing with Marvel is it's famous for asking for lots of changes throughout the process. So you're already overworked, but then Marvel's asking for regular changes way in excess of what any other client does. And some of those changes are really major. Maybe a month or two before a movie comes out, Marvel will have us change the entire third act. It has really tight turnaround time. So yeah, it's just not a great situation all round. One visual effects house could not finish the number of shots and reshoots Marvel was asking for in time. So Marvel had to give my studio the work. Ever since that house has effectively been blacklisted from getting Marvel work. Imagine they blacklisted them, right, from getting any Marvel work because of the intolerable schedules and pressure they put onto them. So obviously they can't blacklist everyone. I think there will come a time where Marvel Studios will need their own VFX department. It won't be pretty and the quality will go even lower and even worse. Part of the problem comes from the MCU itself. Just the sheer number of movies it has. It sets dates, it's very inflexible on those dates, yet it's quite willing to do reshoots and big changes very close to the dates without shifting them up or down. This is not a new dynamic. So basically, every MCU project now has become Justice League. Let me explain to you what I'm trying to say. It's become Justice League because Joss Whedon came in and had the same release date as Zack Snyder. That wasn't fair on Joss. That wasn't fair on the actors. It wasn't fair on the VFX artists. That's why the VFX was so shoddy on that film. Justice League is an example of what not to do. And now Marvel Studios are actually following the pattern of Justice League. Think about that for a minute. Some of the problems I mentioned are universal to every show and every project, but not every client has the bullying power of Marvel. So this is interesting. I remember going to a presentation by one of the other VFX houses about an early MCU movie, and people were talking about how they were getting pixel fucked. That's a term we use in the industry when the client will nitpick over every little pixel, even if you never noticed it. A client might say, this is not exactly what I want, and you keep working at it, but they have no idea what they want. So they'll be like, can you just try this? Can you just try that? They'll want you to change an entire setting, an entire environment pretty late in a movie. So there's a big difference, right? Most modern day directors know all about VFX, how it works, the technology of it, what it looks like and what they want. So I was speaking to a VFX artist about a week or so ago, and they were talking to me about Marvel, but then they started talking about Zack Snyder because they had worked with Zack. And they were saying the difference between Zack Snyder and Marvel is a big difference, and you need to listen to this to understand how terrible this is. Where Zack Snyder comes in, he understands the technology, he understands what he wants. He sits there with the VFX artist, he tells them in detail with compassion and kindness what he wants, very slowly, so there's no misunderstanding. When you work for Zack Snyder, you're not under pressure. You're not under any pressure, but he wants what he wants, right? So he wants you to get it right, but he works with you. That's the difference. Now, at Marvel Studios, it's not directors, with the exception probably of James Gunn, who's going to tell you what they want in terms of VFX. It's some producer. Maybe it'll be Feige, it will be some bean counter. They have no idea what they want. This is the big difference. Directors should be sitting there with the VFX artist. But at Marvel Studios, the director isn't in control of anything. Again, I think apart from James Gunn, who's the only one who gets overall control of any MCU project when he's involved in one. The main problem is most of Marvel's directors aren't familiar with working with visual effects. Exactly, that's the issue. Now, as I say, most auteurs are your Denis Villeneuve's, your Zack Snyder's. They know the technology. Every director who uses VFX today should understand what they want and how CGI works, but they don't. A lot of them have just done little indies at the Sundance Film Festival and have never worked with VFX. So maybe those directors shouldn't be coming in. Now, this is a very critical discussion because I've been to film school, and I know lots of people who have been to film school, I mean, back in the 70s, directors like George Lucas and Coppola were all coming out of film school and being given big jobs. It's great to give little directors from the indie circuit that big opportunity, and that's how you get quality. It's very difficult, but surely before you start working on any film as a director, you need to understand this technology because of the climate we're in today. So it's really weird to me that more directors from this new generation don't understand VFX. Even if you're like kind of from film school and you work on indie movies, you should still know the technology and understand what you want to see. Or you have no right to be working on a Marvel movie or any other movie. But I think that Marvel itself encourages this kind of lack of knowledge so that directors can be molded and pushed about like clay. They don't know how to visualize something that's not there yet, that's not on set with them. So this is really weird to me because you hear people like James Gunn and Zack Snyder talking about how they do lots of concept art, everything's drawn up, right? So those directors understand what they want to see. But surely as a director, you're an artist, you should be able to visualize what's not there. After all, the concept's in your mind already. That's how I work as a director. So I don't really get this. This is astonishing. So Marvel often starts asking for what we call final renders. As we're working through a movie, we'll send work in progress images that are not pretty, but show where we are at. Marvel often asks for them to be delivered at a much higher quality very early on, and that takes a lot of time. Marvel does that because its directors don't know how to look at the rough images early on and make judgment calls. Now, this is very, very, very exposing, everyone. This is things that we didn't know. What they're saying is, their directors are so inept in the modern way of doing things, and we're talking about directors from modern. These are young directors who should know the calls. Now, clearly, they're not talking about the Russos or Joss Whedon. They're talking about the kind of people that are going to be making the new Avengers films and people like that. This is a huge problem. They're so inept in the modern way of making a film via VFX that they're putting more pressure on the VFX artists. It's very interesting to be talking about this today because I'm tired of entertainment journalism being shills and being the slaves of the big studios and not doing exposés like this. So well done, Vulture. But that is the way the industry has to work. You can't show something super pretty when the basics are still being fleshed out. I agree. The other issue is when we're in post-production, we don't have a director of photography involved. So we're coming up with the shots a lot of the time. That's crazy. Why not? Where's the director of photography? It causes a lot of incongruity. A good example of what happens in these scenarios is the battle scene at the end of Black Panther. The physics are completely off. Suddenly the characters are jumping around doing all these crazy moves like action figures in space. Suddenly the camera is doing these motions that haven't happened in the rest of the movie. It all looks a bit cartoony. It has broken the visual language of the film. Things need to change on two ends of the spectrum. Marvel needs to train its directors on working with visual effects. This is just basic stuff. Every director working on these movies should already understand the VFX technology and how it works. And I'm astounded and have a better vision out the gate. You're a director, you should have the vision. But these are not visionary directors. These are just solid directors being asked to do a job. Basically the directors are being directed. This is Marvel. You will never get a statement from Kevin Feige, an admittance of the way things work. This is embarrassing for him, for Disney and Marvel Studios. Doesn't matter how much money or how popular their franchise makes. The studio needs to hold its directors' feet to the fire more to commit to what they want. The other thing, yes, but they don't want that, my friend. That's the problem. To get what they want. The other thing is unionization. This is what I was talking about earlier. There is a growing movement to do that because it would help make sure that the VFX houses can't take bids without having to consider what the impacts would be. Because a lot of the time, it's like you get to work on a Marvel show and you'll work on that for cheaper just because it's cool. Some of the problems I mentioned are universal to every show and every project, but you end up doing less overtime on other shows. You end up being able to push back more on the directors. When they say something like, hey, I want this, you can be like, this doesn't make sense. Not every client has the bullying power of Marvel. Wow. That is amazing. It's absolutely exposing, and we're really going to get into this because it's so important. Marvel Studios is supposed to be one of the biggest studios it is in the world, in Hollywood, owned by the biggest entities in entertainment globally, Disney. And we've pretty much heard about the conditions of the VFX artists' working conditions, and it's a sweatshop, isn't it? It's a factory full of slaves who are literally being whipped while they're working. That's what it is. You're talking about free VFX artists on a big MCU project, whether it's a movie or a streaming show. That's why the quality, my friends, is so bad. But to find out that most of the MCU directors can't visualize the vision, because the vision isn't theirs. This is the difference as well between Zack Snyder, James Gunn, and the people that the MCU are using right now. These are not visionary directors, right? They don't have their own vision. They're working on Kevin Feige's vision. And he's not a director. He can't visualize anything. He knows jack shit about VFX. So if the boss knows jack shit, right, and he's employing directors who know jack shit, and it's not their vision, and you've got Feige directing them, it's messy. But then they're basically getting VFX companies on the cheap. Again, this is a franchise that was getting $1 billion a picture before it started dumbing down the quality of its movies and started introducing streaming, which really put more pressure. So this is the thing now. They've got more content to do. So as I say, Marvel Studios has become like this sweatshop, and it's terrible. And I'm here to stand by these VFX artists, and I'm going to say, until Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios make a public statement about this, until they admit their wrongdoing and say we're going to do better, I'm going to boycott every Marvel Studios project apart from James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Why is that? Because I know that James would never treat his VFX artists this way, and this is not the way he works. But for the rest of the shit they're putting out, I don't have to watch it. I'm not invested in it, and that's it. So I'm going to stand by these VFX artists. And if you're watching and you're a VFX artist and you want to talk to me in confidence and you worked for Marvel before, let me know. If you think this is false, what this person's saying, let me know. If you can confirm what this person is saying, let me know. If you are this person, let me know. We don't have to reveal who you are. I think we really need to be looking into this, and we need to look at the practices of other studios as well, so we're not just singling out Marvel and Disney, but it's clear here there's a big problem, and the quality of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whether it be in streaming or theatrically, has certainly gone down the toilet. The frustration of Henry Cavill not showing up to San Diego Comic-Con last weekend is really spilling over, and you can feel the frustration from Superman fans. And really this is great for me, because for years now we've had hot takers saying nobody likes Superman, he's not relevant, but this has really spilled over, especially on Twitter. They're all tweeting an old article from Forbes, and it's very, very interesting. So the article was called DC Films still doesn't know what to do with Superman, and comic book artists, comic book writers, fans are all coming out quote tweeting it. Actually, Neil Gaiman, the iconic Sandman creator, actually said he doesn't need to be relatable, he needs to be inspirational. And I think that's right. And as much as I love Cavill's Superman and Snyder's take on Superman, that's one thing his Superman lacks: inspiration, if I'm honest. And I'm sure certain people are going to come at me for that, but that's just my fault. So let's reread this article, and I think it's very, very interesting. A recent piece in Variety delved into the future of Warner's DC films, the studio having long learned their lesson from the failure of Justice League, emboldened by the success of Joker, Aquaman and Wonder Woman. It's just so funny how they spin the narrative for these studios. It's like when I was reading the Marvel Studios piece on the VFX artists. They're all covering for Feige and the studio. In fact, Feige's made more announcements in the past 24 hours to distract from the VFX artist controversy. This is what they do. Suicide Squad is being rebooted. That's not what happened. Harley Quinn is starring in her own supervillain spin-off. Oh yeah, remember that? How did that get on? A new Batman is on the horizon and the Joker is more popular than ever. The studio is even giving Green Lantern another shot. Oh yes, what happened to the Green Lantern movie that they said, Zach, you can't have Green Lantern in the Snyder Cut because we're doing our movie. Where is it? Where's the series? Exactly. As I say, these journalists are all corrupt and they're all working for the big studios and the big presidents of these studios. But the future of Superman is murky. The studio reportedly unsure how to make the character relevant to modern audiences. Imagine admitting that. Imagine coming out and saying, we're creatively bankrupt. Michael B. Jordan has pitched a fresh take on Superman and the master of franchise reboots. Wow, J.J. Abrams. You know what's happened here, right? And I really don't want to start this video again. This wants me to subscribe. So I'm not, let's see if I can get away with this, right? Let's see if we can do this. Wait right there, because I really don't want to start this video again. Sorry about that, I've put my email address in. It looks like we're good for now, so let's continue. Michael B. Jordan has pitched a fresh take on Superman, and the master of franchise reboots, J.J. Abrams, has had multiple discussions with the studio regarding the character. His solar-powered abilities no doubt providing exciting new opportunities for lens flares, but with no script or director attached, insiders believe that a new Superman film is unlikely to appear before 2023. Well, we're in 2022, so you've got no chance of seeing Superman up in the air in 2023. Or have you? Who knows? Cameos are possible, of course. We'll see. It's interesting that Superman, a character instinctively associated with the word superhero, is proving difficult to adapt to film. In the age of superhero saturation, is the character's godlike powers and righteous attitude really too alienating for modern audiences? No. None. The excuse from people who do bad Superman is we can't make him relevant. He's too powerful. He's too this. Before we continue this very old article, let's talk about something. Let's talk about Smallville. Smallville gave Superman the backstory and the soul he deserved. Smallville gave Superman the skeleton the comic books never did. And I respect what the comics did. They created Superman. They created the superhero. You know, Jerry and Joe are the pioneers of the superhero and the inspiration for Stan Lee and what he did. But the point being, Smallville did something very special, a mythology for Superman, arriving as the traveler, that everyone wants to, you know, have that power. Amazing storytelling. Smallville did it for 10 years. How did Smallville make Superman inspirational and relatable at the same time? And it wasn't because he's not Superman in the show. It's not because he's not wearing the costumes, because he's still running around, he's still saving lives, and he's still got superpowers. He's the most powerful character in that show. And we still care about Clark, and we still love Clark, and we still relate to Clark. And Clark Kent is in most of the scenes, right? It's his show, as Tom Welling keeps on telling us, how hard he worked, right? Why were they able to do it so well, better than any other television show, right? I mean, the only other thing that ever, got Superman so right was Superman the movie and Superman 2. So Smallville could do it. Why can't these bums make a relevant, inspirational Superman movie? Because they're creatively bankrupt and they shouldn't be working for a studio in the entertainment storytelling business. That's usually the argument against Superman, but it doesn't really explain his sudden absence from the big screen. After all, Wonder Woman, Shazam and Captain America are incredibly popular and all share that childlike earnestness, the boundless optimism that defines Superman. So why isn't the Man of Steel thriving among his fellow do-gooders? Part of the problem might be his feverishly absurd mythology. No, it isn't anything to do with his mythology. It's not Superman's fault. Warner Brothers have been creatively bankrupt. One that is difficult to fully embrace without shifting the tone to comedy. You see, this is the thing. They're not going to admit that Superman isn't the problem, because then they'd have to admit the studio's the problem and they're working for the studio, because these journalists are not real journalists. These are corrupt protectors of power. I can easily imagine Bizarro or Krypto the Superdog appearing in a sequel to Shazam, but not a Superman film. Superman's lore might be ridiculous, but he's not meant to be a joke. Well, the thing is, yes you can. We had a Bizarro in Smallville. He wasn't a joke. We had a kind of Krypto dog, right? He was in it. They did him in a kind of more realistic way in Smallville. He was infected by meteor rocks, kryptonite. It worked. He doesn't talk, he doesn't have a personality, but he's kind of Krypto. They call him something else, but you get my meaning. So again, this is nonsense. In contrast, Man of Steel took Superman very seriously indeed. The character navigating the complexities of the modern world, but the film didn't feel true to Superman's personality. Zack Snyder's somber vision of Krypton with its paletic spaceships and scaly outfits was unintentionally even sillier than Shazam. No, those costumes look amazing. You know nothing. This stuff should be rendered in bright colours and the costumes should be as outlandish as they are in the comics. Now, that's an interesting point. I'm not going to say that's a bad point. Snyder genuinely tried to redesign Superman's costume into something more sleek and intimidating. But there's not much you can do with an outfit that looks like pyjamas. Oh my God. You know someone's not a Superman fan when they call his costume pyjamas. Especially when it's as iconic as Superman's suit. You can't make too many changes and you certainly can't make it look cool. Well, he did though, because Snyder's Superman costume is fucking cool. Maybe the colour could be a little bit brighter, but it's cool. And that's the thing about Superman. He's not cool, he's not funny, he's not edgy. Although he was funny, they did manage to do some comedy in the Donna movie, didn't they? Unlike Captain America, he was never one of us, like Wonder Woman. He's meant to be a beacon of hope in a dreary world. But he's significantly sillier than Wonder Woman, just as silly as Thor and Shazam, but unable to pull off the irony. Obviously, this is a generalization, as Superman means different things to different people, and any character, no matter how quaintly optimistic, should be able to thrive given the right story. But Superman occupies a very specific niche, a serious symbol of hope dwelling inside a bizarre universe. He doesn't seem to share Batman's malleability. The Dark Knight can switch between deadly serious and absurd to suit the times, while Superman remains stubbornly consistent. This is what I'm trying to say to you. They're trying to make the problem with the Superman character and his universe rather with the studio. And in this crowded superhero landscape, Superman doesn't offer anything unique. Well, that depends what you call unique. I think Superman's very, very unique, and he does offer something unique. You've just got to take him that way. You've just got to have the imagination. Maybe if extreme left politicians weren't swapped for talented writers in Hollywood, there wouldn't be this problem. He preceded and inspired many of these characters, but nowadays he feels like a relic from a bygone age. I couldn't agree less. A time when a pair of glasses could be considered a disguise. But again, we go back to Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve made Clark's body language different, the way he acted different. It's a great disguise. Because I mean, yes, you could argue that Lois, Margot Kidder, should know who he is. But unless you've seen him up close, then there's no reason you'd know he's Superman. Funnily enough, Aquaman was in a similar situation, weighed down by the baggage of a much-mocked mythology. But Aquaman's brand was rebooted with the help of the beardy, tattooed Jason Momoa, who seems like he'd be a blast to grab a beer with. Guess who did the creative conceit of that Aquaman and casted that Aquaman? Yes, one Zack Snyder. Superman, however, will never be that guy. He can't be changed into a party animal. Superman has endured through the decades as an unchanging icon of hope. But that simplicity is proving an obstacle to cinematic success. Christopher Reeve's Superman, released in the late 70s, was a faithful depiction of the character that proved immensely popular with audiences. Arguably, the film was the first step towards today's crowded superhero landscape. And standing amongst the diverse, interesting superheroes that fill the cinema, Superman feels more like an archetype than a fleshed-out character. Perhaps the Man of Tomorrow needs to take a decade away from the screen, and the audience needs to miss him again. You see, a journalist, this is Danny Di Placido, right? This is a journalist working for the studio, trying to convince you that Superman needs a decade away. Well, we haven't seen Superman really in cinemas since 2017, so this guy is telling us we can't see Superman again till 2027, and the way things are going, we probably won't see him to 2027. The reason Warner Brothers came out and said they didn't know what to do with Superman wasn't because they didn't know what to do with Superman, it's because they wanted to fire Henry Cavill as Superman. They were having problems with Cavill after hacking his upper lip and making a mess of his Superman character. They started to find that Cavill had opinions of his own about how Superman should be crafted in movies and in the DCEU in the future. They don't like actors with brains and opinions, and I'm afraid us British are very intelligent, opinionated people, as you can see from me. So they had an actor who'd researched Superman, studied him, understood Superman, saw Smallville, saw the other TV shows, read the comics, and he had good ideas on what Superman should be, so they didn't want any part of this actor who'd become too big for his boots. So instead of even sacking him and casting someone else, they couldn't be bothered to do that, so fuck it. Let's delete him. Let's bring in a black Clark Kent. And let's swap Superman for Supergirl. And these were their ideas, and they were trying to put this in via the media to twist our minds, to manipulate us. And of course, it never worked. And now they're in a situation where the customer is saying to them, we want Henry Cavill's Superman. Where's Henry Cavill's Superman? And they're like, oh my God, we could actually make money now. We don't know what to do. What should we do? Our black Superman's not going to work. Our Val Zod Superman's not going to happen. It's not the Superman people want, by the way. They want this fucking inspirational Superman, right? That's what everyone's clamoring for. They want Henry Cavill to play an inspirational Superman, which I'm sure Henry could do. So the people want what they want. So they're in trouble now. And I think it's a very, very fascinating situation that 2 or 3 years ago, a studio said, duh, we don't know what to do next. This is what Hollywood is. Nothing's really planned. Even the MCU, we've read today, we've exposed the MCU via that Vulture article and the VFX artists, that they're working on the seat of their pants, and they're working VFX artists, and they're running VFX like a fucking sweatshop, a factory. Hollywood don't actually have a plan. They're not the intelligent people they actually pretend to be, or the compassionate, or the nice people. They're not very nice people, and even worse, I wouldn't mind if they're the worst people in the fucking world, but the people working in Hollywood and entertainment today are not even talented people. They're just politicians. That's it. All they care about is their political commentary in entertainment. And this is the apocalypse that we've had to actually consume since 2016. Surely, Western entertainment, English-speaking entertainment, is heading for bankruptcy. Before we get to the final part of today's show, I want to show you something when we talk about journalists. So this is Jim Vajuda, or whatever his name is, right? And this is Pedro Pascal, a very long time ago. Why am I showing you this picture? I think Jim is a journalist for VFX. This is what I'm trying to show you, how corrupt they are. All they care about is kissing the asses of the actors and the studios. A journalist should be working for the public. to inform the public honestly about the entertainment industry, the workings of the entertainment industry, and their honest views about the industry and about the content, whether it's TV, streaming, or cinematic movies. That's not what's happening. They're working for these people, to protect these people, to protect these companies, and they're all making money off of each other. This is the corruption of the entertainment media right now, and I think it's absolutely disgusting. And that's why, you know, channels like from the Fandom Menace or, you know, from the Snyderverse are doing good business on YouTube now, because you and me are fans. We're being genuine. If that makes us money and that gives us views, great. We're not going to kick that out, are we? We're only human after all. But we are speaking from our hearts. I'm speaking from my heart. This journalist, do you trust this journalist, right? Do you trust him? When he's schmoozing with an entertainer, that's all they care about. Going to parties and saying, I know this one, I know that one. I know a lot of actors, I know a lot of producers, I know a lot of directors too. You'll never see me with selfies with them, because I don't need to build myself up and say to you, look, follow me everyone, I know this one, I know that one. I could easily do it, I could make a lot of money doing it. But then I'll be using my friends, and I will be friends with them for the wrong reasons. And morality is important. Anyway, I thought I'd show you that just to expose what journalists in entertainment are today. So finally today, before I started this video, I was watching a video from the fantastic Chris Wong Svensson, Ping Pong Flicks. Go and follow his channel. We have no affiliation, but he's one of my inspirations for starting this channel. He made a very interesting point about San Diego Comic-Con and the 2 DC trailers. Are DC and WB just going through the motions with these 2 movies? They're just saying, right, let's just do this. We're gonna, you know, we're not really gonna heavily promote them, but we'll take them to Comic-Con. And what does that say about the future of the DCEU? Does this mean that the DCEU has been pretty much cancelled and they're gonna start again? I think this is what Chris was trying to hint to without directly saying that, because I think there's a deeper conversation here, because they didn't take the Flash movie, Batgirl, or Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom to Comic-Con. So surely there's going to have to be a decision there eventually. I believe Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will be seen. You have to talk about intent. I believe not taking the Flash movie there, or even discussing Batgirl or Blue Beetle, that's kind of a statement of intent. But especially with Batgirl and the Flash movie, which are 2 connected projects, whether you want to hear that or not, those 2 babies are connected. That's why Batgirl doesn't have a release date. And the Flash movie, we know why that's problematic. By not taking the Flash movie there, and I mean, Batgirl, I think, is still in post-production deeply, but I'm sure they could reel off a trailer by now, or at least have the cast to talk about the movie. Because let's be clear here, and I discussed this yesterday. Basically, the Flash movie, and I think Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom won't be able to go to San Diego Comic-Con 2023. They stick to these dates. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is coming out in March of 2023, and if you believe the release date, the Flash movie is coming out in June. Well, Comic-Con normally happens July time, around that time, so they're not going to be able to take those 2 movies there. So that is an admittance of defeat. That is an admittance of intent. That I believe Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will be delayed. They will sack Amber Heard. Somehow they're going to have to do that. And I think they will bring in Emilia Clarke as Mera. And I think this will be a very, very popular choice. They'll have to reshoot those elements of the movie. Maybe they'll have to reshoot a lot of the movie. So I think you could be looking at that movie being delayed, maybe to 2024 or maybe to the back end of 2023. Because the first movie was released Christmas of 2018, wasn't it? And did really well around that kind of schedule. So I do believe that's what's going to happen to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I wouldn't worry about not seeing that film. But the Flash movie and Batgirl are under serious threat of never being seen. And that's a shame. So Chris was just making this point, you know, it just looks like they're just going through the motions until whoever they're trying to get takes over DC Studios, then those people will make those decisions. The 2 people, you know, is it Michael DeLuca and Pam Adby, take over Warner Brothers Pictures as well. Then these decisions are going to start happening thick and fast. And I think August, September time, you're really going to hear some big news, and a bit later on in the year as well, definitely you're going to hear these big plans for DC, but there's no one really running DC now. It's pretty clear Walter Hamada isn't really the DC Films president any longer. So I agree with Chris. They're just going through the motions. They've got Black Adam there. They've got Shazam, the only two unproblematic projects on their books. They thought, let's just fucking release these, right? We'll delay Black Adam so they can perfect the movie, and, you know, we'll release Shazam. You know, if they, you know, by some miracle become successful, then of course we'll talk to The Rock and we'll see what can be done separately. But it's pretty clear to me from what we saw at San Diego, where there wasn't much effort with the panel. Both panels were extremely short and sweet. That tells you everything. That David Zaslav has decided to cancel the DCEU. I see nothing else going on. A lot of people will be and have been upset by me saying this, and this is just my opinion. If you've got another opinion, please. This is a place for intelligent, constructive people. And most of you, thankfully, who follow me, do comment constructively. So if you disagree with me, disagree constructively. Then we can have an interesting conversation when I start doing my lives in the winter again, because they're coming back. Very difficult to do lives in this heat. It's summer. I've got the air conditioning on. I don't know if you can hear it blowing in the background. If it's interfering with your enjoyment of the video, I do apologise. But yeah, it's very, very hot. I couldn't do lives in this weather. I'd fucking die. I need water every 5 seconds. But anyway, yeah, so I do believe that the DCEU, as we know it, is dead. It doesn't mean the Shazam universe can't survive. Kind of, in a way, they could add it on to a new franchise if they liked it, you know, in an interesting way. And, you know, like James Gunn's Suicide Squad universe, they could literally take James Gunn's Suicide Squad universe and make that the new franchise. And we know the Suicide Squad cameos in Black Adam, so they could kind of take those and blend a brand new franchise bleeding through from the original DCEU. I think we're heading for something along those lines, or something totally new. But the old DCEU, the multiverse strategy plan, is dead in the water. This has been Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again on Friday. Until we see each other again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.